Welcome as we visit with one of my all-time faves. It's Cooper Mays of the Vol Report with Cooper Mays, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Today, we'll discuss Tennessee's big win over the weekend against Virginia. We're going to talk some trenches because Tennessee played well on the offensive line, even though Cooper was sidelined. And with Tennessee's defensive line and just the rotation and the defensive front just looks absolutely dominant. How good were they? And also the player that Cooper called way back in like April said, this guy's going to ball out, you watch. And he was exactly correct. So you're basically 2 for 2 because you told me about Darnell Wright early last year. So if you ever want a miserable schedule and make less money than you deserve, you should be an NFL scout one day.
Man, that does seem, I don't know.
You don't want to do that. A lot of travel, no family, you don't make good money. And that's not the way to go. You've got big things happening, Cooper, more than an NFL scout.
That's the hope,
There you go. All right, let's get into it. You did make the trip. You're on the sideline. You have a fantastic tan, by the way, from being on the sideline. But let's start with talking about the guys that stepped in for you. And we're talking about primarily Ollie Lane, but I think Dane Davis rotated in there some as well at center. And I thought a pretty good push in the interior of the offensive line. And I was really impressed at times for what they did. What did you think of how they played?
I thought I thought they played really well, and I think they played the right way, which is hard to do in the first game of the season when it's so hot and it's your first time being out there for long drives and everything. So it's hard to play. It's hard to play a style of football that's like finishing down the field into the whistle because you're just so tired. And I think we overcame that and played hard, finished folks, and I don't know. I was watching from the sideline, so it's hard to see like technique and everything, but you could see the intent was there and the energy and the violence. So I was happy about that.
You talk about the right way. And one of the things that I mentioned last week is if you aren't able to play, they lose some of your intensity and your nastiness. And I mean that in every complimentary sense of the word. But they did seem to have some of that. Do you take a little bit of pride and maybe you've passed that along?
I don't know if that's any bit of me.
I knew you wouldn't take any credit.
I don't think I can take any credit for that. No, but I don't know. I mean, it's just there's like I said, there's one way to don't play at that speed. You'll get in trouble. Like it won't really bode well for you. So I think everybody kind of when it comes down to it, when the ball's put down on the field, I think everybody knows what time it is and what it takes. So I think everybody was kind of on that type of timing.
That was a veteran group too at Virginia that you guys went against. So I mean, I'm not saying that's the best team in Power Five conference, but that was a veteran group. So to be able to go out there and push them around a little bit, what does that say about the recent preparation, in particular for Ollie and what he's done?
I think it really speaks to us just beating kind of them at what they were good at. I didn't think they were the most flashy or athletic or, just like flash out on tape. They weren't those kind of guys. I mean, but you did see them for the whole game play hard and finish and try to play harder than their opponent. And I think we took that edge away from them. And when you took that away from them, we took away what they were good at. So I think we played harder than them, and I think our tempo has a lot to do with that. It's so hard to prepare for our tempo, and our guys been practicing in it the whole time. So I think we were more conditioned and wanted it a little bit worse at the end of the day. So I think that's what really pushed us through.
Let me ask you a question on a personal level before we get to the defensive line. What were the emotions associated with not being in the opener?
I don't even know if it was really like emotions. It was more just like feeling odd. It feels weird. That's the best way I could describe it. I don't know if I was like sad or mad or whatever. Well, it wasn't really that. I was just like you just feel so odd and weird about it because all this time you've been available and ready to go most of the time. So just not being out there with your guys, it doesn't feel right.
Were you because again, you're on field level, and for those that haven't been on field level, it's tough to see a lot of things. But were you able to provide any in-game coaching, in-game tips, those sort of things for the guys from things that you were seeing on the sideline?
Not as much because our sidelines were so packed. It was like a home game. So wait, give me a second here. My stuff just shut down. But it was basically like a home game for us. So we had a lot of guys on the sideline, like ton of guys, and then you add in all the big screens that are stopping our people from stealing our signals, and then you got all the staff and everything. It was hard for me to really get a good view of anything, but there was some stuff I could see and some stuff that we were coaching up on the sidelines. But Coach Ellerby does a really good job and basically has us locked in the whole time on the sidelines. So whatever happened out on the field is getting corrected automatically. So there wasn't much that I could see that was better than what the coaches could see. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Now, I would imagine that they may have tried out some different guys. So I'm not going to pretend to tell you that I saw every single time they subbed an offensive lineman. I tried to keep note, but obviously a lot going on. So, um, who stood out to you in the interior of the offensive line, maybe besides Ollie, guys that played either at that left guard position or center because of the movement that had to happen when you got injured?
I thought Andre played really well, and I watched a little bit of the film afterwards. I haven't watched the whole thing about every guy yet, but I watched a good amount of reps from Andre throughout the game, and I thought Andre played really well and did a good job for being his first time in the Tennessee scheme and everything. So I think he did really well. I thought Dane came in and played solid at center. Those were more the guys that were rotating. Jackson came in and got a few plays a few drives. And he did really well as well. So I think it was a good day overall. But I thought Andre looked really good. We'll have to watch back on film and see what it looked like. But yeah,
Yeah, and one guy you mentioned that you mentioned Davis, and if you can at his how tall is he, by the way?
probably like a legit 6'6.5", like no shoes on.
Um, that's pretty big. So you
Yeah.
were talking about Dane Davis, and is it difficult to get leverage when you're that tall at center? I mean, that's the type of height you want at tackle. Does he have a greater challenge than maybe a guy who's 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah, probably. So I always tell people though, everybody, I don't know. I mean, there's probably even a lot of coaches out there that would still say that like the lower hat wins, the lower hands win. I mean, the lower man and like the lower like you look at people's hat, like their helmet, and that's
Mhm.
how you determine who has the leverage, right? Which I don't think that's all the way true. I think the first most important thing is hand placement. You know what I'm saying? Because me personally, there's plays that you'll watch me where my pad level is, and I'm a 6'2.5", 6'3" guy. So I'm not taller than most of the people I'm playing against. But sometimes you'll see me consistently playing at a taller level than my defensive lineman that I'm playing against. But I have won the hand battle. My hands are applying force in the right leverage. So if you can get your hands in the right spot, that's where you can apply force. It's not always about where your hat is. So, but yeah, I will say, with all that being said, I kind of just went off on a tangent. But with all that being said, yeah, it probably is hard for Dane to get leverage at how tall he is.
No, that's interesting that you bring that up, though. I'm gonna get sidetracked for a second too, because I've noticed before that sometimes you're at head level with some guys that you're moving, and it's because you're getting your hands up and underneath and basically taking some of the weight off their feet where they have less ability to push you.
Right.
So
So basically, the premise is D linemen, for the most part, are coming out of their stance and grabbing a hold like this, like a bench press. And if you watch them, they're really planed out like at this angle, and they're all their weights on their toes. Like they're 2 feet in the ground on their toes, like bridged out, trying to press force right here. But for me, if you're planed out right here and I can get my hands up under and you're on your toes and I've got my like I'm putting real force through the ground, you you can't combat it because I'm lifting you up. And when you're on your toes, all that force is going through your calves. So your calves are not strong enough to brace against somebody putting weight through their quads and glutes and hamstrings and all that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, definitely not my calves either. So
Yeah.
that would
Like
be
if you were going to push a truck, you wouldn't like me personally, I wouldn't do it on my toes because like you're not getting enough force through the ground. Like I would like turn my feet out a little bit and push all my weight through my whole foot. That way you can engage your whole leg. That's how offensive linemen play is they play on the insteps, so like the insides of their feet. And when you bring hands up underneath, it allows your hips to roll through. And that's what like breaks the leverage of the D lineman, and then you can roll them out. It's hard to explain, but I don't know.
no, no, that's very interesting. I know I've asked you about Ollie Lane before, but I want to ask you about Andre Keurig, just kind of as a player. The Vol Report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. Cityheatandair.com. They bring you Cooper Mays each and every week, and don't go with another HVAC company that could say, hey, you need a whole new unit. You might not need that. Over 50 years of service in the Knoxville area. So, what is Andre Keurig like as far as a player, and what are some of his strengths?
He's so Andre is kind of a little bit similar to me in the fact that he's a little bit taller than me, but weighs about the same, and is a little bit probably undersized a little bit, but he makes up for it in the fact that he's really athletic and knows how to translate power through his hips, like I was talking about earlier. So, if you can fluidly translate your power and you're strong and you're undersized, you can kind of make up for your undersizedness, if that makes sense. So he's one of those type of guys. He's freak athlete, strong, can translate power really well, and I think it'll show. He'll keep getting better throughout the year too, because he's receiving some really good coaching from Coach Ellerby, and when you get good coaching and you're a guy like him who cares and genuinely puts the work in to get better, then it'll happen for you. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, if you're Andre, Ollie Lane, or Dane Davis, how much more confident are you knowing that you played at a high level? How much more confident you on a Sunday after the game as opposed to the Friday before a game, now that you've actually gone out there and done it in a big time game?
I think it changes a lot about how you feel because, like I said, probably a couple times earlier on this podcast, confidence all it really comes from is just doing repetitions over and over, and practice is practice, and it's one thing, but it's a different speed when you get into the game and feeling that you belong out there and feeling like getting that knowledge and you just know you belong out there and that you're good enough to play. That's really what you want to feel on a Sunday.
How about that defensive line balling out? Now you've gone against them throughout the offseason, but goodness gracious, they they were able, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like while last year Tim Banks dialed up a lot of stunts and twists and blitz, that there were just guys winning one-on-one matchups a lot.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the good thing is when you run, different assortments of blitzes and exotic pressures and twists and stuff like that, that allows people to get one-on-ones. So when you can get the one-on-ones, our players are good enough to win. At least one or two of them is going to win on those out of those five. So our guys, I don't know if I even really said this, but in my opinion, our guys are going to be one of the best defensive lines, defensive front sevens all of college football probably this year, in my opinion. Like definitely one of the premier defensive lines and front sevens in the SEC, no doubt in my mind. Just the style of which they play is just so annoying to play. Like it just messes everything. Like you can have no flow because they play so vertical. If you watch most teams' defensive lines, what they do is the defensive line will try to post up on a block and they'll look and try to they'll play both gaps. Like, but our defensive line doesn't really do that. Our defensive line just all they worry about is playing on the other line of scrimmage. Like they're not as like gappy responsible. They're responsible for playing like 2 yards on the opposite line of scrimmage. So they want to, when the ball snapped, they want the offensive lineman to be 2 yards back in the backfield at the point of when the ball's getting past them. You know what I'm saying? So it messes up everything that you do offensively.
They're also too deep, which means every athlete is a little bit different. So they bring it something different to the table. So as an offensive lineman, if you're going against a guy that brings this to the table and then he's rotated in by another guy that's a little bit different, how challenging is that from a mental preparation standpoint to be ready for guys that can do different things on different plays?
Super challenging. We've got a lot of different guys, and when I say different too, it doesn't mean they're different in skill level. I mean, like you said, different in skill setup. You know what I'm saying? They got different skill sets, but they're the same skill level. So anytime that happens, it's a problem in and of itself, because if you, even when you take out the mental aspect of knowing who you're going against, you also factor in the mental aspect of you've been out here for 4 drives and that person just rolled in fresh in the middle of the drive and you're already dog tired and they just came out there full of juice, just ready to go get the quarterback. And it messes everything up. But luckily we play tempo, so people don't get to switch as much. So we get to eliminate a lot of that. But there's nothing worse than being in the middle of the drive and you're just out there so tired, and then they just run in 4 new people that are just fresh, have been sitting there for about 15 minutes, just ready to go. Then you're
Yes, I guess the different skill sets from drive to drive might be a factor, but you're right, not during the drive. Nobody's.
Well, no, I mean, no, you're totally right. I'm not you were spot on. I'm just saying, even when you add on and go deeper into it, just the fact that them having fresh air in their lungs is a whole nother thing to deal with. Because, like you said, we're a really deep defensive line. Like we can rotate however much we want usually.
So Cooper Mays is going to go to the NFL and he's going to make the Hall of Fame and he's going to be one of the best off centers ever. And when he's done, I'm going to try to talk him into doing some, I don't know, so whatever media is at that point with me. And because, man, you got an eye. You told me last year, Darnell Wright, you were absolutely right, before anybody knew he was even going to be okay. And you told me Dylan Sampson, way back in the spring, was going to ball out. Well, 4 touchdowns is balling out. What'd you think of Dylan?
Yeah, that's what I told him. I didn't even realize that, because we rotate our backs so much and they're all kind of similar body style. So I didn't pick up on that he had 4 till like the later on in the game, like maybe like last bit of the third quarter. I was sitting down with him. I was like, that's a Jalen Hyatt type performance right there.
That's right.
What Hyatt had 5, right? Okay, he was one off. But I mean, hey, 4 is nothing to snob at. You know what I'm saying? That's not too shabby.
No, that's 4 more touchdowns than I've ever scored in my life. Is he big enough to be a featured back, or does he always need to be sort of in that complimentary scat back type of role?
I don't really know. I don't know about any of that. I do know that he's a well-rounded guy, so I don't know if that translates to being like a feature back, but he's a guy that you can run it or swing him out of the backfield and put him on a route, and he'll catch the ball just as good. So I think if that allows, I mean, he's not Derrick Henry, obviously, but he's a guy that can make an impact on every part of the field. So if that allows you to be on the field every time, then I would let him be.
Scary good player, scary good defensive front. I thought a great debut uh, by Tennessee and your team. And I know that you're very much still a part of that team, even though Sideline providing leadership, and you're very valuable to that program and valuable, obviously, to the Vol Report with Cooper Mays. So we certainly appreciate it. Get better. I owe you some barbecue. We misconnected, but I'm getting you some barbecue, so that's going to happen. He is Cooper Mays. I'm Dave Hooker. The Vol Report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning at cityheatandair.com. 50 years in business in East Tennessee. And I'm telling you what, integrity matters. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.